Budgets are one of the biggest things that make a difference. Money going into solving a problem. So I looked into global budgets. I looked into the trillions of dollars being spent in America on the recovery, trying to get the stimulus inserted back into the economy, get businesses going. I looked at how it's being spent in Europe and how it's being spent in Asia, how it's being spent in South America or in Africa. But the funny thing happened. As soon as I started speaking about the ones that affected the first world, I made a boring video. Yeah, I have other channels up, but on this channel, I created to talk about this topic. And I was hoping to do a series of things about the stimulus and how, because it was a great opportunity to talk about global governance and how things affected on both a local and a national and a global scale on a massive way in our personal lives. And this pandemic was a perfect metaphor for these issues and a way to analyze them and look through what's going on in the world on a bigger scale and a bigger picture. But I couldn't get these videos. I had to keep making channels and keep trying to make videos, and they're very safe topics, really. I'm not even criticizing the governments. I'm just saying what they did and reading off the basic literature off of things from the U.S. Congress or from what they're doing in Canada, from what they're doing in China, what they're doing in the EU. China is not necessarily a first world country, but it's a very powerful economy. But nonetheless, whenever I spoke about them, I could never get the videos monetized. I could never get the videos to go on ads, which is important for a new channel. Of course, on YouTube, it's really hard without existing channels or knowing somebody who's already super successful and having some sort of and people may rightly ask, how do you know that they're censoring you? Well, before I even decided to make these YouTube channels when this pandemic first started back in January or February, when I started mulling around these ideas, I noticed that on other accounts I was running for customers, I'm a programmer, I help set up these things, I noticed that there was these warnings about companies using offensive language to individuals. I have some screenshots of it I sent my friend because we thought it was insane. We understood the need to not have crazy people booming and then starting riots or something because, in Argentina, they start accusing the government of all these things they didn't actually do that had nothing to do with this pandemic, and then having some sort of sea change politically. That'd be super negative. I can understand the need to sort of get out real facts from World Health Organizations, but this is not what's happening. They're blanket bans that are in effect global forms of censorship like have never been seen before in politics, and nobody's talking about it because there's no way to talk about it because it's not allowed to be talked about, and everyone who's in politics is either on one of two major parties who are part of the kind of sloppy disbursement of trillions of dollars, or in getting private benefits to them and their friends on both sides, or no real technical expertise in this area. So if you're just a normal person and you run YouTube ads, go and look at how if you run an ad including these words, they'll actually have a warning pop up talking about and this may be not COVID-19 related, this could be just generally, but say for example the content, I got warnings when I talked about the CARES Act. YouTube wouldn't play it and said that it violated their policies because I was talking about loans without specific end dates on them. So the thing is, that's actually talking about the structure of the CARES Act and how they were sending it out to people. So I understand that there's all kinds of sketchy people doing loans and you want to make sure that they have end dates in terms of just spam. But it wasn't just that. I would get videos flagged up for the language I was using, just referring to the name of the legislation. And when I would appeal these decisions, they would say, oh, they're not sure whether I come down on within their terms or not. And all I was discussing, and I asked them, was here is here is the act, here's the exact bill number, and this is what I'm discussing. Here's the passages I'm discussing from it. There's no play, there's no political sides of this. I'm just saying what's out there and saying how that's an issue. And this is well within our rights as a citizen, well within our rights within the users of YouTube. And yet, nonetheless, the videos just would never, ever get approved. And I am on the neutral side of things. I am supportive of the federal government. I'm supportive of global governance systems. These are the people making the decisions I'm talking about. I'm a supporter of them in many ways, not in the crappy ways they do things, but in the general idea of federalism. The general idea of globalism is being poorly executed, as we can see, in this pandemic. And as I spoke about, here are some screenshots of just the general language warnings they were giving, saying that if you use these, be very careful when you run ads because this can violate blah, 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 blah. The point of this is to censor you because they know some of these terms have to be used to discuss actual policies. Like this is language directly in the bill. It could be the title of the bill. So if the title's illegal, or the title's in violation, like saying CARES Act, or talking about the pandemic, or talking about funds, which is what a stimulus is, you can't talk about a stimulus. What am I going to use? On my first video on the channel I just made, a bunch of vague metaphors about how governance works, like the dragon takes all the money of the $2 trillion and gives it out to the dragon babies. Like, am I supposed to use some abstract metaphor that doesn't make sense about a very important issue? I was trying to be direct, and for that I was banned from running ads and showing any videos. Now, of course, I'm a new channel and they're probably boring ass videos, so they're probably not surprising they don't have a ton of followers to begin with. I'm not delusional. The point is, this isn't just me. It's a larger system affecting hundreds of thousands of users, millions of users all over the world, and actual people trying to discuss the stimulus because their content is ranked shit unless it comes from an official authority approved by a government. Who's the one spending the money who doesn't want to talk about how it might go wrong? That is how censorship works. It has one narrative, the narrative of those with monopoly on force, and not average people. Trillions of dollars, most money wasted in history. And yet, we can't talk about it. We can't discuss it. We can't run ads or start channels talking about it. I didn't run channels about this because this wasn't happening before. So what, you're saying I can't make a video about the pandemic? It's not like I was planning on this 10 years ago and I had time to build a gradual audience. Of course I'm starting it during the pandemic because it's in response to the pandemic. So like, how does that work exactly? Like, you just don't want any new input for a year through these algorithms? Is that what these boards are deciding? These small groups of people are deciding that we can talk about the stimulus? If we do, we have to be a very well-established person who gets money from the stimulus. There's no like normal people who didn't get anything but a tiny check in the mail that's ineffectual to any real family. I mean, don't get me wrong, they did good intentions. There is a need for them to put these funds out there. There are people who, even the small amount probably helped, but it's nothing near the trillions and the hundreds of millions, just hundreds of billions being handed over to companies who do not need it. And with one dude inspector who can't even afford a chair is supposed to look over the biggest budget ever. I mean, the guy's a symbol that the Democrats put in the CARES Act to, oh crap, now maybe this video won't be able to be shown. Whatever. The CARES Act, to look symbolically like he was checking where the money's going, but there's no way physically, with even the best intentions and a genius, that he could look over all these funds and as quickly as they're being dispersed. And they're not getting that money back. I mean, a lot of these companies don't pay taxes anyways. And so they're from the federal government, and then the federal government gives them free money. I'm pretty sure this is an amazing deal for anyone who has any real influence in any country. So yeah, the narrative is going to be overlooked. And then we're going to wonder why there's so much unemployment and there's so many poor people and small businesses that are crushed when we could have helped them, or at least helped them more, much more. I would have liked to have millions of businesses get hundreds of billions of dollars sent to them, actually have a real fighting chance to get back on their feet, rather than just knocking them down, giving them chump change, and they're not talking about it.